Welcome to the Frank Sontag Show. Brian is co-founder of the band Korn, and he's also author of the brand new book, With My Eyes Wide Open, Miracles and Mistakes on My Way Back to Korn. Brian is in studio with me. How are you, brother?
I'm good. I'm really good.
It's good to see you. Let's see.
One to you.
No mic? How about now?
Hey.
There it is.
Hey, there I am. How's it going, guys? I was just telling you while you played that. It gets me every time. My heart just feels the presence every time I hear that because I was so lost before, and now I'm not.
It's good to see you. You look great, man.
Thank you.
It's been a couple years. Thank you.
It's been a while, yeah.
It has. Thank you for coming in studio. We're going to have you in for an hour. And if you would, for those, we want to talk about the book With My Eyes Wide Open a lot. But let's go back, obviously, to the early times for Brian Welch. What was it like for you growing up? And how, of all things, did you eventually get into music, rock and roll, and Korn?
Growing up, I was a pretty happy kid early on. My parents, my dad was a banker, my mom was a nurse, and so it was just kind of normal as we were growing up. But we lived in Torrance, California, and in that neighborhood, there was a school in our neighborhood. And my house was 3 houses down from the school. So my mom and dad, they worked till like 5 or 6, and we would just ride bikes until they got home after school. We would just go straight to our bikes. And I remember, unfortunately, the first time I tried marijuana was I was 8 years old. 8 years old? Yeah, because one of the teenagers in the neighborhood smoked it, and we wanted to be cool like them, and so we stole a roach out of one of my friend's brother's ashtrays, and we tried to smoke it. But that was my first entrance. I didn't know what it felt like. I don't know if I did it right, but other than that, it was pretty normal. And then my dad, my mom's brother actually had a Chevron station, and they went into business and got a Chevron truck stop, and we moved to Bakersfield, California, 2 hours north, and yeah, I grew up there.
How was that for you, going from Torrance to Bakersfield?
It was a more difficult move because at first I was excited because they said, we were crying. Me and my brother were like, we don't want to leave. We live by the beach, And we were bawling one day, and they said, but the house that we're moving to has a pool. And we're like, okay. With a diving board and a slide. So it was cool at first when we got there, but I got into some friends that I became best friends with these kids that were kind of abusive, and like they made fun of me. It was like a couple of these friends, they would gang up on me. And if I was with them just by myself, either one of them, they were nice. But when we got together, they picked on me, they called me names, they pink-bellied me, all kinds of stuff. And I would get away from them for a while, then start hanging out with them again. And so it was just I got picked on a lot in my junior high days. When
did the rock and roll start for you?
Oh, right after I moved to Bakersfield. I heard AC/DC, Back in Black album came out in 1980, and I was just hooked. That voice, that guitar playing, I was hooked, and I wanted to play guitar right away. I had my mom buy me a acoustic guitar, and she said, you learn the basics and we'll talk about an electric. And within 2 weeks, I was playing Mary Had a Little Lamb. I was like, check this out. And so, yeah, I got the electric, and I really, really loved it.
Brian Welch is my guest. How did Korn come about? I know Korn is from Bakersfield. Obviously, you hooked up with some of the guys out there. Talk about that.
Yeah, I met actually the singer in about 4th grade. I knew who he was anyway. We didn't really talk. It was just like he was in a different class. And then I met the bass player in 7th grade. It's funny because he was into Duran Duran and New Wave, and I was into Ozzy Osbourne, and I was trying to convert him into heavy metal music back then. So he got into it a year or two later, and I met the other guitar player, James Monkey Schaefer, when I was 14, and he had cut off the tip of his finger with, I forget if it was either a motorcycle accident or a lawnmower. And I have to remember that story. I've known him my whole life. I don't know why I forget, but the doctor said, pick up something to get your finger movement back and everything, like a guitar playing after. And so he got an acoustic guitar. Then he met me.
Wow.
And he was like, what? you can play all those songs of those bands I love. And I sold him my guitar and amp. And so we became friends like that. And then, it was crazy because less than 10 years later, we're in Hollywood. We formed the band Korn. And, our dreams came true.
Your dreams came true and your nightmares came true too. We're going to talk about that in a few moments.
Yes.
Was God at all a part of your life growing up? Was there a church? Did you ever attend? Do you have any recognition, acknowledgement in family or circles at all?
Not in my family. We did go to church, to an Episcopal church a couple times. My mom took us there, and we would complain. Like, we don't want to go. It's boring there. Da, da, da. They make us eat that stale bread. and so my mom just gave up. She was like, I'm not going to try to convince anybody to go to church anymore. She's trying to do the good thing for the family. My dad did not like church. He had a mindset like, his mom, my grandma was actually, she actually stayed with a Christian family that was really religious and like Pharisees, and they really abused her. And so he grew up with that, with his mom telling him that. And so he had this preconceived idea about just Christians or something. And so he just didn't want anything to do with it. But as far as my other family, aunt and uncles, there was a couple that went to like Catholic church, but we never went with them at all, and we never prayed at dinner that I can remember with any of my family ever at all. So God was never talked about or thought about,
So getting back to, you said your dreams coming true, you get together with your friend, you form Korn, the next thing you know, it all happened. Huge. Korn was huge.
Yeah.
Talk about those days and also some of your struggles.
Yeah, it was just like, I couldn't even believe what was happening. It was the first record, and we were on tour 8 months or something, and we got the Ozzy Osbourne tour, playing in arenas, just all over the place. And there's like, 15 to 20 something thousand people a night or more. I don't even know how many. I don't remember, but the crowds just started liking us. And on that tour, I had Ozzy posters all over my walls when I was a kid. And here he comes in the dressing room with his wife, and they present us with a bottle of champagne and just like a plaque that says we went gold, because our management, told them that it would be cool to present it to us. So it was just surreal. And, just seeing the success and all the kids coming out, we went from clubs, selling those out, to theaters all over the country, and then selling the theaters out. And then our second record came out, went number 3 on Billboard, and started playing us at MTV like 3 a.m. And so we stayed at theaters during the second record, I think. At the tail end of that, we got the big Lollapalooza tour, and that's when things started escalating. MTV was grabbing a hold of us, and MTV was like traveling with the tour, and they're interviewing us every day, and then the record company saw all the coverage we were getting and everything, so they decided that they were going to let us just take time and do the right record, get the right songs, and that's what we did. We got this record, and it just, when that came out, that's when everything exploded. I mean, to the point where like we were on MTV every single day. Like there was the VJ came with us on a promo tour, and it was just surreal. I mean, that record just blew up. I could go on, but it was like we got Grammy awards, MTV awards, and it was raining money, literally. The music industry was just killing it then, and people were buying music back then. So, yeah, and so when we got that big, that's when we started to lose ourselves. I started to see myself and my friends change. It's a crazy thing growing up in a small town and getting that famous, and so we couldn't even go to the stores, and it was crazy. It was like pop culture. That's the weird thing. We were kind of a darker band, but we had just as much rotation on MTV and on radio and stuff, like pop, like Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. Back then it was that popular,
Brian Welch is my guest. His new book is With My Eyes Wide Open, and we're going to talk a great deal about his book and his daughter and where he is now. We're just kind of walking you through the earlier days with the band Korn. So you go huge, Korn explodes, and your life begins to spiral out of control. Safe to say?
Safe to say. Everybody in the band. spiraled out of control at one point or another. And, I mean, it was everything. It was like, of course, it was drinking. You know, we got Jägermeister endorsements. We got just anything we wanted, you know, free every night. And, you know, the girls are coming around, and we had just all the drug dealers want to go to the rock concerts, you know, and, they were bringing just drugs, offering us whatever. We had doctors prescribe us whatever we wanted. You know, we would just, if I got addicted to Vicodin, I got addicted to Xanax and all that stuff. It was everything. And the only thing I started doing coke early on and meth once in a while, but I would stop. You know, I would do it for a week or so, or a weekend, and then I would stop. And I had this control over it, and I was really proud of myself. Oh, I'm not like those drug addicts. I have control over that stuff. And as the years went on, the success went on, the control got weaker and weaker. And I started becoming a slave to the drugs, the alcohol. And I got married and everything, and all of us got married around the same time. And mine was either the first or second to fail. And me and my wife, she came from an abusive home, and she would just punch me in the face and get on top of me and pound my back and all kinds of stuff. And I fell into hitting her back and everything. And she bloodied my nose once or twice. I did hers, and it was just brutal. It was brutal. And it was not the life that I dreamt about when I was a kid, listening to those AC/DC records, you know?
Mm. And you have a daughter. A daughter was born.
Yeah, during all that point. And you know what? She was the light from heaven that came, that made things as normal as they were. When she was born, there was it's sad to say, but there was only a 4-month period where just things were just awesome, you know? And it would go up and down. We'd have good times and bad times, but that 4-month period, it was just... I remember, I know the presence of God now. I know what that feels like. It's a piece of heaven, you know. He guarantees us a deposit from the Holy Spirit in us. And so I remember looking back, I thought it was my daughter being born, but it was God, and the breath of life came into the room when she was born, and I felt the presence of God for the first time. And I'm telling you, that presence, that feeling of just purity and kindness and gentleness from another place, you know, It lingered for about 2 weeks after she was born. And I thought that was just the magical feeling that happened when your child is born, you know. But looking back, knowing God now, I knew that was Him. He was reaching out to me, and He was just showing me, you know, He was trying to get a hold of me, but I wasn't listening. So, you know, after that 4-month period, I quit drinking, I quit smoking cigarettes, I quit everything, but I went back on the road. And once I got on the road, I would start doing all the old things, and it just spiraled down out of control after that, and I lost my marriage and everything.
Mm. You obviously spent a lot of time before you became a Christian, which we're going to talk about on the other side and what happened. You were really conflicted. You went back and forth, and you had the impulse to stop, and you would stop, and then you go back on the road and start using again. That's kind of like a self-imposed hell that many of us live in,
yeah,
even to this day. If you could, we've got a couple of minutes, talk about what led up to the moment when you finally said, okay, I can't do this anymore. And you reached out to God. Talk about the times up until that moment. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about what happened and then get into your book.
Okay. Well, the control, like I was saying, I became a slave. Every year that passed, the more money I made, the more I became a slave to the money and a slave to the drugs and a slave to the alcohol. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And like I said, I would hit a bottom, and then I would get the strength and be like, okay, well, my wife left me. She got involved with all these skinheads. They came into my house, and she hired a babysitter, and they were just having parties. There was meth parties going on. And when I heard about it, I went home. She told me she had a boyfriend living in the house. They got out of there, and I grabbed the baby, and I took her on the road with me. My parents were like going, what's going on here? You know, everyone's freaking out, you know, but I did what I had to do. And so I lost, my wife ended up just gone. I got divorced, and I got full custody because she was so gone with the skinheads that they gave custody to a rock star. That's how bad the situation was for her. And so, I remember I got my life together again. I stopped drinking. And I did that thing when she was born, I was just healthy and everything. And then 9/11 happened, and I was stressing out over that. And I hit rock bottom again. I went down, and that's when I got addicted to the Vicodin, the Percocets, the Xanax and everything. And then I got the methamphetamine addiction, and I did a 2-year binge, basically. And I had these 2 dealers, they were supplying me. And when I'd go overseas, I'd run out of drugs, and they'd send me meth 8 balls through FedEx or whatever. And that's when I was like, this is rock bottom. And so I was so afraid of who I'd become that I needed to get help. And I went to an outpatient rehab. I couldn't get clean. And that's when some friends invited me to go to church. And, I stepped into that church, and I felt that thing that I felt when my daughter was born, that presence. That's where it was. And I was like, is this real? Is this God? Is this what I've been looking for? Is this the help that I need to stop being a slave to all the stuff that's ripping my life apart? And that was the answer I found, obviously.
Brian Head Welch is my guest. His brand new book, which is out, is called With My Eyes Wide Open. When we continue, we're going to pick up where we left off. Brian walked into church, sensed God, but we have to say yes. We have to become obedient and submit. We're going to talk about what Brian did and talk about his fantastic new book again, With My Eyes Wide Open. Brian Head Welch is my guest, and we'll continue with more. This is the Frank Sontag Show.